Okay, so part one, more or less, of the video of the Project WRX. I'm gonna not really do a in-depth how-to or anything, just kind of overview of what I've done and what my logic and game plan is and kind of where I'm at. So if you haven't seen the other video, I picked up this crashed WRX from Copart, and in short, the car was $8,000. That's what I wanted for. And then after the sales tax, Copart fees, I was right under $10,000. The damage on the front end was the door. I needed a new door. I needed a whole new suspension. So that was bent. I'm gonna need new wheels. The new wheels I'm not worried about, because once I do the wide body, I'm gonna work with the wheel company to get custom wheels made. But as far as the damage that I did have to fix, a whole new suspension and some tie rods. So all in, I'm around $11,400 for this 2023 WRX. It is base edition. I didn't need anything fancy, and it only has 7,000 miles. So I'm very happy because now I get to ruin the car the way I want to. So the first step was for me to figure out what is going on with the fender and the damage of the driver's side and how bad it was. So I put tracking markers all over the passenger side fender, and I don't want the black trim. I hate how it looks on these cars, so I'm redesigning the whole fender to be without it and not have the hexagon shaped arches. So for that, I didn't need those elements. So I just put the markers on and I 3D scanned the fender. Now, I 3D scanned the fender with Einstar 1. Now I have had access to the Einstar 2 and the Vega because I was doing a kind of like a ambassador partnership with Einstar or Shining 3D. Needless to say, I'm not a fan of how they conduct business. When we agreed to how I do the videos, it'd be me sharing my opinion. And every video I've made me sharing my opinion got rejected because they did not align with what I was sharing. So any company that says it's okay for you to share your opinion, as long as it aligns with our marketing strategy, it's BS to me. So any YouTuber that hypes up the scanner like it's the best thing ever is lying. There's a lot of issues I've encountered, and every time I bring it up in a video, they don't like the way I'm more or less sharing the issues. And so with that being said, I told them I want nothing to do with your business anymore. I don't want no partnerships, nothing. I paid full price for the Einstar 1. It works amazing. This is the scanner I'm going to use for the project, and that in a nutshell is that. So scan the fender, and then it comes to the data side. So again, because I really wanted to figure out how bad the damage is, first I needed to print the stock fender. So here, I designed this one. This is the passenger side fender for the good side. And what I needed to make sure was my 3D print would align, and it did. All the mounting holes, everything I had, like this mounts up next to the door area. This mounts up on the bottom. This goes on the front fender area, and this goes into the engine bay. All of this lined up perfectly fine. So I knew my 3D scan was good. I knew my design for the mounting areas was good. So that gave me confidence in, okay, now that we have a good foundation to work from, we can have some fun. So the next thing I did was I went in and I designed this wide body fender. Now I'm working on the whole design overall, but I wanted to 3D print this wide body and see how it looks like in person. So what I've been doing for my 3D prints is I just use popsicles to kind of build a skeleton system on the backside. This helps the 3D prints be a lot more stronger. So that way when I'm aligning and I'm putting it on the car, they just have a nice strength to them. So I don't have to worry about them breaking apart, because all I did was hot weld them with a wood burning tool. So I'll do a little update video of me putting this on the car, but I've already put it on the car. It aligned perfectly fine. Well, sort of. It aligned okay. The issue was, and if you look at the first video, the driver's side, there was a lot of damage, a lot of dented framework, if you will. So I actually went to a store here in the States called Harbor Freight. I bought a pull hammer, and with that, I was able to really just mash the sheet metal out and make it like where it should be. Because the great thing is I knew these mounting points are good. They're successful. So now I knew I have to modify that chassis or those bits of alignment to make sure that they move where these holes are. And now that I did that, this actually aligns very well. The seams between the hood are very nice, and it's in a good enough spot where I'm happy for the moment. And then what I'll probably do is when I have a fiberglass fender, is just modify, because some of these brackets, they're so thin, you can literally just move them with hand. So I'm just gonna gently adjust them when I need to offset the seams and things like that. But that's on the finishing stage. So I'm gonna do a recording here shortly of me putting this on, and you'll be able to see how it looks like. But I 3D printed this with PLA just because it's a prototype. I'm not making any molds or anything off of this. I just want to see how it looks like in person and if I want to adjust the design. And so far, because I have like this nice little bevel and roll, I almost want to push it even more because I really wanted to capture the highlights and reflections. Granted, you don't see many reflections, but I could still kind of move it around and see how the highlights are. They're kind of subtle. And my logic is if I'm going to do something, to really push this so you can really see the design lines and flow. So anyhow, with that being said, is I'm gonna skip over here to kind of show the other part I'm fixing on the car, which is not buying a new headlight because the headlight was damaged. I don't want to spend money on it, so I'm gonna just do that. All right, so moving over here, here is my headlight, and all the brackets were ripped off. So I just bought some like JB Weld plastic weld, and all I've been doing is just gluing these brackets so I could hopefully reuse the headlight without having to spend money on a new one. The headlight itself works, it's just a little scuffed up. So what I'll do is I'll just wet sand the glass, re-clear coat it, and then in theory, as long as it mounts and sits well, I'm gonna be in a good spot. Now, as far as this goes, this was the whole assembly I replaced with a new one and the tie rod. And then I bought this wheel off Marketplace for the moment because my other wheel was destroyed. So I was able to get the car on my lift. This area was damaged, as you can see, so I had to bend this out. This was easy. I made the other video about doing a 3D print, how to unbend this and fix it. This worked amazingly well. It fit like a glove the first test. And then this whole area was completely inside. So this is where the pull hammer was. I used these little holes I made on my own and just kind of kept hitting it until it took shape. So now the fender actually fits nicely. And overall, we're in a really good spot. Hopefully the door is gonna arrive well, it's Friday right now. So I guess early next week, and I'll get the door on and then figure out what I have to do to fix this area because there is a slight indent here. However, if I could just put a piece of metal or something just to offset the bend, I'll do that. Worst case, I'll put the pull hammer in there and offset it that way. But that's the last bit, is getting the door on and making sure that the body lines and seams of the door are nice and flowing, especially because my wide body design takes the body line from the front door and it starts making it exaggerate to the front bumper. So it all kind of has to flow well. Otherwise, if there's like gaps and offsets, I'm not in a good place visually speaking. And so the next thing is on the design stages, I got to 3D scan the whole side so I could start designing the side skirt. Because right now I have the front fender and the bumper element, but it all has to flow because I'm gonna have like a floating blade, like a GC3RS style, and then it's gonna transition to the back end. Again, I'm covering up all this trash. I hate the black trims. And then it's just gonna overlap and see what I could do. Because on the front bumper design, I am gonna cover up all those black elements so they won't be present. They'll still be on the backside, but you won't see them with the covers on. So let me make a quick clip of me putting on the wide body, a couple of shots of that, and then I'll just show some of the design stages on the computer of what I was doing. But yeah, this is a very simple, quick, direct YouTube video, not really a how-to or anything, but a little project breakdown progress, if you will. Okay, and here we are. So as you can see, for the most part, it fits very nicely for what it is. I don't have the headlight on yet, but the key areas, so this could be a push down a little bit more, like I mentioned. So this area right here, really thin metal, so I could adjust it. And I'm gonna do that when I have the fiberglass fender on, just because there's no point. But the key lines, so like this line right here, flows very nicely. As you can see, this fits wonderful. These down here, these mounting points fit perfect. This is the bracket that I unbent. Everything's bolting up perfectly fine. As you can see, overall, the seam is pretty good. And again, I could offset it a little more, and I'll do that at the end, but overall, it's definitely great progress. And Fitment is fantastic for a, consumer grade 3D scanner that's under $700. So very happy with how this is progressing. And this was the area that I had to fix. I just kept bending it until these holes were as flush as I could get it. So yeah, that's the progress on the 3D printed wide body. It looks awful right now with obviously a door missing, a piece of trash spare wheel, and no front bumper, because that front bumper trim is what's really going to help sell the way this flows with the body. And I'll put up some renderings that I've done of how that's looking so far. But that's it. Hopefully someone finds this interesting. I'm very excited about this project, and I really can't wait to see how it comes to life with the actual proper parts. And the way I plan on doing it is I don't want it to be full carbon fiber. One is I don't want to infuse a huge carbon fiber fender. That's just so much effort with a lot of risk. And I don't want to make the carbon fiber molds, but I also don't want to have so much carbon fiber where it's just carbon fiber. I actually want contrast between carbon fiber and color parts. So whether I paint this to color match or just wrap it, the game plan is OE or body color fenders, carbon fiber accents, and that's going to be across the whole car. I'm going to design my own carbon fiber lip, so I will have a big element, just not a huge fender. And then that way I could have some contrast elements and have some more pretty visuals, if you will. So it has more of a designer sense versus just slapping carbon fiber on the whole thing and everything being black and gray checkers. So that's my view and logic, and that's why I'm game planning this the way I am. So if anyone has any questions about the process that I'm doing, I'll share. But again, the next video, or the next step in this video, is I'm gonna hop on the computer, kind of go over the design elements of what I'm doing, and I think that's gonna answer a lot of questions. So I just try to cover what I know and what I'm doing, so that way, if anyone has any questions, it's more or less already answered. But more than happy to answer anything that I left off if you just want to ask in the comments. I don't have a big following, which is good. I could respond to everyone. All right, onto the computer next.
Okay, now looking over the 3D side of things. So here's my 3D scan, and this was good enough for me to get my key information. This is the mounting areas over here on top for the side mirror area cover, as well as this little fender area on the back side. So what I know on my end is this right here, these points are for the actual fender liner, which makes them useless, especially with me going wide body. These right here, these two squares hold this bracket that the front bumper attaches to. So these are very critical. And then these other things are kind of alignment pins, as well as things for hardware. So these down here these two are markers that didn't get filled. Whatever, it doesn't matter to me. This is important, these two holes. These right there, this one, some of these, and these. So anyhow, overall, this is a great reference marker. So what I did first is I went in and remodeled the actual OEM bumper. And as I mentioned, I'm not really worried about that black trim, so I didn't care about that. So this was my remodel. Kept it very simple. I did not add any of the holes with the modeling. I just kind of created all the shapes of where they go. And what I did have on that version was the thickness, so the shell, because obviously when you 3D print, you need it to be thick. And that is the only issue with right this moment, is 3D printing a part and getting it to align. I have another video that I'm going to be posting that's how to prepare a 3D file for 3D printing, where that way you could offset the thicknesses in the right directions. But for the first test print, all I did was I threw a shell modifier in 3D Max that just adds thickness. I made it 4 millimeters thick, and then I printed that. Now my wide body fender, I was actually doing a new test, was 3 millimeters thick, and I was able to get away with that. So that's awesome, because it is thinner, and it's funny because even 1 millimeter goes a long way with helping it align better. So now with that said is I had the 3D model done and I needed to create all the little pins. So I created these quick little pins in 3D Max, put them everywhere that the scan data has it. So as you can see, and for size, I didn't go too crazy with matching the scan data. I just wanted to create quick holes for just a quick sloppy alignment. And not knowing how precise or accurate the 3D scan was, I actually made them a little larger than I would or should, just so I have a little bit of wiggle room for alignment purposes. So anyhow, with that being said, is once I made the pins, I use a plugin TieFlow, and then they have this tie bowline, which is really amazing for cutting things out quickly. So then I applied that modifier. As you can see, all the holes, everything's cut up. So that was my 3D bumper for the test print. And once I confirmed that this does work on my car, I was very happy. So now moving forward, we have the wide body test. So here is this one. And these files open pretty quickly. But what I did on this is I took my wide body fender that I'll open the file after this one to kind of give you a reference of what I'm working with. So 1 second, and here we go. So this is my wide body fender, and once I had it modeled, I actually went in and kind of force adapted it to the shapes of the stock fender, so that way it will all match up. Because like I mentioned, the key thing for me is to try to make sure I get these body panels to just bolt right up. So that's what I want to do. And as I mentioned, because the fender liner is not being used, I removed it. This is where the side skirts mount up, so I kind of kept them matching the OEM default things. These holes right here, everything flows. So overall, I was very happy with how it blended. And the reason why I had to do it like this is for the sake of concepting, I'm not modeling off of the CAD data right away. So I found this 3D model right here on the internet, and I'm using this as my starting point. And this just kind of helps me visually see how the car looks, how the parts look, whether I have a sense of flow, and also what I want to do in terms of design, stance, things like that. So I'm opening this file now. Here we go. And those are just pop-up notes I make for myself. So as you can see, this is right now the concept of what I'm working with. I'm going to have the front bumper trim that overlaps, and unfortunately, unlike the Fender, I don't want to do a whole new bumper. So these are going to be kind of like either riveted or somehow into the bumper so they stick. But my game plan is each side is 40 millimeters wider. And then this is going to have like an inside grill type of deal. So it has a little bit more like finesse details. Probably just going to end up 3D printing these and gluing them to the back side of the fiberglass thing, and maybe doing a thin strip of double-sided tape. So that way they will also work as a nice little support element. Game plan is to just keep the OEM side piece as is, but as you can see, that black trim is going to get covered up by my body accent. So that way I can completely eliminate it. Now this lip that I'm working on designing is going to be carbon fiber, and it is going to kind of flow into the fiberglass. So that way I could have this element be a car paint color, and then this is going to be a nice accent trim. And maybe I'll adjust the design a little more to flow into here. It's not 100% finished yet. I've been kind of entertaining the idea of doing kind of a side blade up front. But again, I really hate that black trim, so I'm trying to make sure I find a creative way to cover it up so it's not present. And then here I just started laying out shapes, but we're going to have the side blade, or I'm going to have the side blade, and it kind of flows into the side skirt. So I want to 3D scan that data so I have something to reference for mounting points and things like that. And then in 3D Max, what I like to do is I like to create these lines and shapes and kind of help guide like the OEM body lines and make it flow. So as you can see, for my front bumper, I drew the wheel arches, and then if you go X-ray mode, you can see how I'm cutting away that hexagon look with a rounded fender. And that helps me also with the flow. And then here, for example, this is the door line that I'm trying to exaggerate through my design. And I use shapes to kind of help me push the flow a bit better. But as you can see, this is how it goes. It goes down and it gently feathers upward, and then it goes right back down into the front bumper. So that's how my train of thought is for the design aspect of what I'm working with. I did push this front bumper trim out further. So this is wider than the OEM one. So let me do this so you can see what the OEM one is and what mine is. So this is where the OEM bumper kind of ends up, and you can see how much wider I made my trim, as well as how much wider the fenders are. And so the same thing happens up here. It comes out wider, then it gets narrower, and then the game plan is gonna flow right into the OEM body line. And then down here, I'm kind of taking this OEM body line and pushing it out to create this design line for me. So I'm trying to use what's already there on the car and then kind of build off of it, so that way there's a sense of flow. But I'm also changing some of the things, like the wheel arches. I don't like them, and that's what I'm changing out. So overall, this has been the process so far. It is still a lot of things kind of work in progress, which is why I'm just 3D printing things so I could see them. I was going to do 60 millimeters wider in the back per side. I may end up doing 40 just to match the front, and then that way I could have the same wheel sizes, but we'll see how that all plays out as I 3D print and test fit in real life. But again, problem is, without me seeing how the wheels are offset, it's hard to get an idea of how cool or not cool the car looks. So I may need to start putting it on jacks and just offsetting the wheels and just kind of seeing what it could look like with the wheels offset. Even the OEM wheels will go a long way for this situation. But overall, that's the 3D side of things. If there's any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to answer it. I'm using 3D Studio Max for my designing. As long as you work to scale, it 3D prints and it fits like a glove. As long as the scan data is good and you design it around fitting the scan data, it works amazingly well. And I have a lot of videos already on my channel about retopoing CAD data, and that's exactly the process I take. First I retopo, and then I build on top of that with blending my design to the OEM fitment areas. So yep, hopefully this helps someone. And again, any questions, feel free to ask. I'd be more than happy to help any way I can.